questions need be. You can see what are your take-home messages, your aha messages. That would be really awesome. And on Facebook, you'll need StreamYard to do a couple of things if you want to, if you could see your name on the comments. So let us know, and my assistant Jill will put the instructions for that in the comments as well. So in this summit, over the whole summit, we are a dedicated group of women from all over the globe who are here to help you leave behind exhaustion, frustration, and burnout, to confidently take back your life with renewed energy and vitality. And we are going to do this by having real and raw conversations about our stories, how to identify, communicate, heal, and prevent burnout. We have amazing bonuses from all the amazing women who are here sharing all their experiences with us. So it's all on the website for the summit. But now let's more importantly, let's start the summit interview today with Dr. Crystal Frazee. I really warmly welcome her, and I am delighted about this interview on so many levels. So welcome, Crystal, to the summit for the Energized, Empowered Professional Woman.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here, Vanessa. It's been such a great summit so far, and to contribute my thought leadership and my work into this for all the listeners is such a privilege. So thank you. I'm really excited about today and our conversation.
Yeah. And thank you. I came across Crystal's work and your work when I was listening to the Fight podcast by Caitlin Donovan, and I thought, wow, it really resonated with me, because in my burnout, I had lost all touch with how my body sensations and everything, and we'll go into that during this interview. And it was such a process getting it back that I turned to breathwork facilitating just to be able to feel again, and it took quite a while. And I thought, wow, this is something that we should share to the world. And I thought, let's have someone who has experienced it as well and have found a way to teach others to do the same. So here's Crystal, and she's an executive and leadership mentor for high-performing professional women. She combines her expertise in integrative health, somatic psychology, and female embodied leadership to create the Somatic Attunement Method, which I'm really excited to hear about. And she uses this to teach women to manage burnout, create sustainable success, and find fulfillment within the lives they've worked so hard to build. She's the author of the upcoming book, Revive, The Working Woman's Unexpected Guide to Recovering from Burnout. Oh, I'm so excited to hear about that. That walks women through a 6-step process to recover from and protect themselves from burnout by accessing the wisdom of their bodies. So welcome, Crystal, again, and let's kick this off. We would really love to hear your story. It was so impactful for me on burnout and how you came to help others in it, to get out of it.
Well, thank you for that really amazing introduction. It's kind of interesting, what led me here. I have a medical career in women's integrative health, and while that was really fulfilling, I felt like although I had the tools to provide, the step-by-step to provide, there was something else that prevented the women that I was working with implementing the steps of the tools that I gave them. And, literally I woke up one morning, sat up from a dead sleep and said to myself, it's the good woman rebellion. And that was really a turning point where this work in my consultancy and, creation of the Somatic Attunement Method really took off. That coincided with my own burnout, which I'll tell you about here in a second. But really, I think that the 3 layers that I bring together are so important, because as women, no matter what culture you're from, you have faced bias and, certain cultural and family of origin thought patterns that have shaped who you are and how you show up that unconsciously can lead us to ignoring our body and to pushing ourselves too hard, which then, takes us right on track for burnout. So for me, I like to say I'm in the United States. I live in Michigan now, but I say I'm a recovering Southern belle because, the Southern states have been shown in studies to have the most traditional values when it comes to gender identity for women. And
Okay.
I definitely grew up, with those types of role models. And I admire all the women in my family. But, I learned some very traditional ways of being a woman. And there's cultures all over the world where their specific gender roles are unique. And so for me, I'm still recovering from that. And I'm also a mother of 2 daughters. And in having them, I had a long infertility journey that was, very challenging and exhausting. And then I reached this point where I was working full-time in healthcare and growing my own coaching practice, focusing on helping women in burnout. And there's this crazy irony around this, right? And then I was unexpectedly the primary breadwinner. And so, the foot was on the pedal, accelerating, and I refused to kind of, strip anything away. I just kept everything going. I also have a chronic pain condition related to, a collagen disorder. And, I found myself one day holding my youngest daughter and unable to feel her, like in connection, in relationship to her. I couldn't feel her against my body. Where I had previously been able to, feel a sense of love and connection, and I could kind of send it from my body into hers and feel this bi-directional connection no matter where she was. But here she is laying on top of me and I felt numb. And that was my wake-up call where I said, oh no. And I was able to use the methodology that I use with my clients. That's the first time that I was like, oh, I should use this on myself. And, it really made all the difference. And let's just say here, I'm a healthcare provider specializing in women's health. And I still didn't catch all the signs. And so that just goes to show that we can know the things we're supposed to do and still be experts at ignoring that we should, or the warning signs that we're not doing enough. I thought I was doing everything I needed to do to take care of myself. So, that's kind of my story. I mean, I think that, there are other speakers have talked about what burnout is and signs of burnout, and I'll, touch on that in just a little bit. But, the Somatic Attunement Method, if I describe it to the listeners, I would hope that they can listen to it and understand like where they may need to focus in the 4 components of it. But the first step of the Somatic Attunement Method, and where I really focus to help myself and where I really nail in with my clients first, is called anchor. So the 4 steps, if you think of it like a triangle, the base is anchor, and then acknowledge, I'll explain these in a second, align, and ascend. But the bottom is anchor. And what we have to anchor is our physiology. And, we think about being in long-term high levels of stress and the influence of all of the cortisol and the stress response on our body systems, your hormone system, everything, your cardiac system, your nervous system, your musculoskeletal system. And this is why, women tend to get headaches and have increased pain, feel anxious, like a tiger is about to, jump out and get them at any time, waking up at 4 a.m. like every night, unable to fall back to sleep. It's this disruption of the physiology. And, that's where I think that we cross a certain point in our stress level and how long we've been pushing ourselves, where we normalize not feeling well, or we normalize specific symptoms in our bodies. So if we look at a few clients that I've had, and it's not my fault or your fault or my client's fault that we get this way, right? This is a cultural epidemic. It's a real problem.
Yep.
And I don't want to put the blame on any of us individually.
Mhm.
But, one had like facial paralysis and was
Oh,
in
wow.
the emergency room for days trying to rule out stroke. And it wasn't a stroke. And, she left with no explanation, kind of like follow up with your primary. We have
Yep.
no idea what that is. And it did eventually resolve. But the truth is, it was stress. Another client was admitted for several days looking at elevated troponin with suspicion of a heart attack.
Oh.
Younger than 50 years old. And, there's several examples of this type of, level of burnout that shows up in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing is, the medical providers didn't ask these patients, what is your stress level like? And what is your stress coping like? What is your lifestyle like? So it's like, if you have this level of intensity of your life, you need to match it with a certain level of stress response, of stress coping. How are you dealing with the cortisol and adrenaline that your tissues are bathing in, right?
Yep.
And then you add in, some more complexity, like in my life, working full-time plus running a business plus 2 kids, that whole thing, right? We're jumping up to pretty high levels of stress. And so your stress coping routines need to match that, or it will take a toll and it will slow you down.
Yeah.
I believe that we're all high achieving, you're a scientist. And your background, I have, an academic background. Most women that I work with are very high achieving, and it's not fair to say like slow down or you need to take a break. In all cases, I think there's ways to meet somebody where they are and make sure they have the way to cope that is going to help them. So that anchor step. I like to say the first place for the listeners is to really look at your sleep. If you're not able to get 8 and sometimes 9 hours of sleep, good quality sleep, and I track mine with my Garmin here. 2 hours of deep sleep and, at least 90 minutes of REM sleep, then you really have to learn how to improve that to help all of your body systems. There's no time management or efficiency or anything else you're going to do if your body is, not getting these really, really essential components for your own well-being,
Yep. And it's but coming from that sort of scenario where, you intrinsically, you do need more sleep, but you seem to kind of like wake up in the middle of the night and your brain's going, oh, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, and that's it. And how would you comment on that in terms of like how would when I guess you're gonna come on to the tell us about the practices that you can do to help with that, getting us more sleep, or at least having that rest that we really need.
Yes. I mean, oh my gosh, I think we could all raise our hand and say, I've been there. I've been awake at 4 a.m. with something important or something completely not important on repeat in my head. Or what I hear a lot is just ruminating, like going back through a conversation and it just nagging them the way they said it or what they said or something about how they showed up. And I think that what we have to acknowledge is that that is just the outcome of our physiology. If during the day your cortisol and adrenaline levels are high, then when you go to sleep, you may not have adequate melatonin levels, and they work inversely. So if your stress chemicals are high, your melatonin is low, even at bedtime and at night. And so we need to do things during the day to start to lower those stress chemicals so that melatonin can come up so that we can sleep through the night. So that is a message that your body is giving you. Your stress level is high and your stress coping, or what you're doing to reduce those stress chemicals, is insufficient. So it's normal. We're all going to experience that when we're not doing enough to reduce those stress chemicals.
Okay.
So, that could be, sometimes it's a form of exercise. And if you're really kind of in burnout, then it's not really pushing yourself. It's actually rest and recovery and, the breathing techniques that you've taught, and, really doing mindfulness related activities to help you kind of bring the stress levels down. But I think, how do we even get to this point where I work with really smart women who we're talking about some pretty basic self-care and stress management, and it's kind of new. I mean, maybe they know of it, but they're not implementing it, and why is that? I think that a lot of what I uncover in the book is that we, let me know from your perspective if you agree with this or not, Vanessa, but I feel like we collectively don't have role models that show us that it's a priority. Now, in my family, I'm like a first generation career woman, if that makes sense. My mom worked, but it wasn't, it was sort of like this. Her priority was taking care of her family. And I think that a lot of women find themselves in that situation where they're either first generation, or if they're second generation professional, what women were facing 30, 40, 50 years ago is very different than what we're facing today as far as all that's on our plate. And so we're really like the pioneers figuring this out. No one showed us how to do it. You don't learn in school, church, wherever, really how to come into your body, how to regulate your nervous system, how to process stress chemicals in your body, how to continue to meet the level of stress that you push yourself into these life experiences, and how to meet that level of intensity with the right practices so that you're canceling it out every step that you go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And talking about role models and stuff like that, you're right. I'm me and my sister in my nuclear family. We are really the first sort of professional women that are out there, because my mom couldn't go out to work for different reasons. And so she decided that her daughters would go out and work, because that's the thing that you do, to make sure that they have the success and the monetary things that they need. And so we had no reflection on that. And my dad worked his bum off, and he was always highly stressed. But he always told us, this is the way you get ahead in life. This is the way you get your promotions. So on one hand, you have no female role model, and then you have my dad's role modeling, which was work hard, and this is the only way you're gonna get ahead in life. And there's nothing wrong with working hard, but to a point where you're completely exhausted. And he was smoking packets and packets of cigarettes a day just to keep himself, and he had all the gastric problems and every single health problem. We thought that was normal, to do that, to be successful. And for me, so I modeled that. Guess what? I worked really hard. I more than what I needed to, plus I was in a job I love, so you just get drawn into it, right? No one's fault, just you doing. And as a result, I had, same like my dad, I had gut problems. No one could diagnose it. No one could know what in the world was happening. I had early menopause. All these things started, and all stemming from this simple yet profound thing that you've talked about, which is role modeling. Amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and people don't realize that your body is making these chemicals in your body, right? And if we have to continue producing these stress chemicals to keep us moving forward, like living on adrenaline, it pulls from sex hormones. It creates stress hormones, and so it creates all of this disruption. And as women are really, getting into their higher level positions and, getting to a place where they can really, get to their dreams. They're in the older perimenopause and menopause ages. And so, yeah, it wreaks total havoc. But another point to what you said is that I think the world in general is telling us to, overwork. And that's a very patriarchal perspective because we're stepping into the workforce that has been established by men, especially if you're in an industry like tech or some of the others, manufacturing, right, that are just completely dominated by men that are running it. I just, met with a woman who's one of 23 like leadership positions, and she's the only female that's ever been in a position of leadership in this company that's been around for decades. But women also, I think, learn early on that to get ahead, we have to work even harder than boys. We learn that pretty early on.
Yep.
And, to get recognized, I think that so many of us, learn that achievement is a way to be acknowledged.
Yes.
There's a term that I've coined, which is the perfection paradox, which is like girls, at least in the culture I was raised in, are expected to be agreeable, likable, of service, generous, compassionate, loving, nurturing, kind of quiet, not too demanding, not too whiny, not too aggressive, not too assertive. There's this real kind of perspective box that we're expected to be in. And when you become a working professional, it's really hard to uphold that and move forward when the metric you're held to is that of a man who doesn't have to follow those, right? There's, oh my gosh, we could talk about that for a while. But I do think that, we have to acknowledge these real underlying root cause issues if we're going to expect a woman to be able to stop, pause what she's doing, and ask herself, what does my body have to say about that? It's getting to the end of the day. How am I feeling? What do I have going on physically? What emotions are going on in my body right now? What's my mental capacity? Mentally, am I clear and creative, or am I feeling kind of tired and drained now? And to really have the worthiness to give themselves the permission and to have the skillfulness to stop and do that. And, I really believe that, why we say yes when we should say no. First, we could kind of summarize everything we've talked about so far under the label, the perfection paradox that affects women. But also, we're wired to create a feeling of safety because of that. Like we want to belong.
Yes.
If we were cave people or out in the wild, right? You want to be safe and you want to belong. And when you say no, or you don't fulfill those expectations, it creates a different kind of stress in our system. And so what I found after, a decade of doing this work is it causes stress to push ourselves in one way, and it causes stress to create the change not to push ourselves. They're both stressful. And it's being mindful to choose which one. And if we really kind of take a second, this might be a little esoteric for some people, but if we take a second, the way that those two stresses feel is different inside our body. And what we're doing is normalizing the one that says, yes, I can overwork, no, I don't have any space in my docket, but yes, I'll take that assignment, or whatever the thing is, yes, I'll bake a dinner for the meal train, even though I have, no ability to do that, which is different than the discomfort of saying, no, I'm unavailable for that. I might be able to get back to you and do that in 4 weeks, right? It's just a different kind of stress. And the way to resolve this is to learn to be with our bodies.
Right.
So, like listeners, if you just take a second, and if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes if you choose, if you feel comfortable. But all I want you to do is just take your awareness outside of like your eyes, your temples, your forehead, and try to move anywhere below your neck that you can. And I just want you to notice a sensation, a physical sensation or an emotion. And I just want you to be able to label that. What is something you feel below the head, below the neck? And when you locate something, I want you to be able to name it. Like maybe it's in your chest or your belly or deep in your pelvis or somewhere in your legs. Maybe there's a heaviness, some anchoring. If you can feel your feet on the floor and just take some breaths. And it's not complicated. You're just staying present to a sensation that you've located and you've named some description of it. Right? It's just the ability to anchor inside yourself as you move through your day. And these sensations evolve and your body is giving you messages all the time, but it's stopping to tune in, to really listen. And, the second step in the Somatic Attunement Method is align. And that's where you have to have clarity as a professional woman. What are your values? Are your values in alignment with the vision you have and the goals you're working towards? Because so often they're not in alignment. We just want it. And so we're just going to force it to be, even though inside it's not really what we want. Is what your body telling you in alignment with that? So if my body feels chaotic, and tight and tense in my belly and, exhausted in my head, but, what I value is feeling at peace and feeling joyful and being able to connect and be present, there's a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's about getting those skills to become more aligned. And the thing is, it's not hard, right? If our listeners would put into their calendar like 3 times a day to check in with their body. And I don't like to give anything super complicated because you're starting a new relationship with your body.
Yes.
You want to be friendly and just start with just kind of like, what messages are here? What sensations do I feel? And start to build a vocabulary.
Yep.
I don't know if you found this in the work that you've done, but it astonishes me what small vocabulary people have, men and women, about describing what they feel.
Yeah, I was the same. So when we're talking about the body awareness and how I cut off, right? For a long time, I just disregarded what I felt from here down, and just thought, oh, it's just getting in my way of doing stuff. So I just completely ignored it over such a long time that eventually I had all these gut problems and everything. Why? Because my brain was not connected anymore to the ability to balance out chemicals, as you spoke before, and because it was they weren't communicating anymore because I cut that communication off. And so when I realized that I couldn't even feel my body anymore and really get in touch with it and my gut feeling, because I just couldn't make decisions anymore, I was like, but what's right and what's right? And sometimes I do go into those states because I'm so, I've cut off from my body. I start thinking into my mind. And yeah, I just found that, but it was necessary for the job that I was doing, because as soon as you were connected with your body's going, I'm tired, I just don't want to do this. And you're like, no, we got to do this. We got to finish it. And so you override it and override it and override it. In time, it's like, oh, well, whatever. And then, it just cuts off. So yeah, what you're saying is, aligning that and aligning your body again. And that's partly why I ended up doing the breathwork facilitating, because it allowed me to have a part of it to really come into connection with my body. And my vocabulary still to this day is very, very small when it comes to my body sensations. And I'm slowly expanding it, even though I facilitate with breathwork. So, I'm like, so is it stiff? Is it now it's stiff or tight, heavy, and light? And interestingly, my vocabulary is less on the good feelings.
Yes.
So
right. We're very biased. Our brains are biased that way.
Yep. So this is what I'm noticing about myself. So this is my journey of that. And so that's why I really like that. Bringing body awareness and into burnout prevention and recovery.
Well, let's zoom back again to the why. I think if the listeners don't leave with anything else, I want you to have so much self-compassion for whatever has led to your journey to this moment. Because not having that vocabulary as a female, go all the way back to being little and being forced to, give so-and-so a hug, even though your body's like, I don't want to, because you were expected to be friendly and loving and kind, or whatever the word is here. And also, then when you started menstruating, go to school, but pretend you're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Nobody cares that you're in pain and, this whole thing is happening inside you. Just ignore that. Culture says, ignore that, and then, if you've had children, pregnancy, postpartum recovery, show up as if you're perfectly fine because you want to appear as if, you can be a top performer no matter what. Right. It's crazy. So, it's like over and over again, it's reinforced that we're just human doers. We're not human beings. And really, though, when I think about the source of power for women, it is their intuition. And it is this body sense, the body wisdom, because our bodies know. I don't have to think at all to make decisions anymore. I get out of my head and I ask my body, right? And that kind of embodied strength is how we can, create the powerful changes we want in our lives, whether it's, speaking to an all-male board or, pitching ourselves for something that, we're nervous about, or just something in regular life, right? Like writing a book. Every time I'm like, the thought, like, who does she think she is, comes up. I go in my body and I'm like, no, I know this is true and I'm going to share it. Right.
Yep.
So, I just hope that, listeners can start to go, oh, okay. And start to listen to your body, which will sound like a distant and faint whisper because it's a relationship you've never cultivated, but it really is your superpower, even to the extent of being able to know your yes and no, right? It starts with little things. There's a little experiment, I like to lead people on where, I have you close your eyes if you want to, just so that you have less stimulation so you can feel your body, and something very yes or no related that's not threatening, I hope. If I ask you questions, I want you to try to notice what messages your body gives you if it's yes or no. Like, do you write with your right hand? Do you have blue eyes? Are you sitting down? Are you wearing glasses? So those were very, hopefully, non-threatening questions. But you get a sense of your body like yes or no, right?
Yep.
So you have to start to familiarize yourself with what those sensations are. Something simple. Do I want water or an herbal tea? Do I want the water? And you wait and you listen for yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Am I gonna work after the kids go to bed? Yes or no, right? You have to take into account what your body has to say.
Yep.
So important. So important. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like leveraging our intuition and our body wisdom is how we work smarter and not harder. Because
Right.
the role models that I have in my recent life come to know who have a very strong sense of themselves, of their value, of their vision, and they want to shorten the path to go from where they are to reaching that vision without the negative health side effects and all the stuff that comes with pushing ourselves too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And they really just value a sense of contentment, a sense of joyfulness along the journey.
Yep.
You know, and they also have really firm boundaries. They're boundaried people. There's no compromising. No is no, and that's a complete sentence. And it's very loving and compassionate. It's
Right.
amazing when you see that modeled. And, so I think that, for listeners, just be on the lookout, even if it's a movie character, someone that you can channel when you're first learning to be in your body, that you can start to think, how would they respond? How would they manage this? How would they do this if you're
Yep.
not able to do this yourself?
Okay.
So
Fantastic. Yeah. Wow.
if I walk through just a little bit of what we've talked through,
Yep.
if that's okay.
Yeah. Go.
So with a somatic attunement, the first thing that we talked about was to anchor, and that's anchoring your physiology into a state of wellness. And there's different ways to do that. But for the listeners, I really want you to start with your sleep and pick one specific thing to try. And some real basic ones would be stopping any caffeine before noon. And you may need to remove it altogether. Reducing bright lights. I wear blue light blocking glasses after 8 p.m. Removing technology at night. Like, start to think about how to reduce stimulation and stress during the day so that you sleep better at night.
Yep.
The second one is acknowledge, the second step in the triangle, acknowledge. And that is have compassion for your lack of mentorship as a child and an adult, and allow yourself to feel, as you're acknowledging these stories of not having role models and not having had anyone actually teach you how to listen to your body, and the fact that it's really hard to have a vocabulary. Imagine you're talking to a child as you have compassion for yourself, which would be like, oh, my dear, it's not your fault. Of course, you're just learning something new, even though, I'm in my 40s. It's okay. Give yourself grace as you're practicing this, right? So acknowledge your story with compassion and journal it out. It can be so powerful. The third step is align. Now, that may be kind of too big to think about right now, but you can get curious, like, what are my values? And are they aligned with my actions of how I'm steering my life? And does the vision that you have for either your personal life or your professional life, the end goal, like, what is this for? Does it include how you feel physically, emotionally, and mentally?
Right.
Because for me, I want to feel physically energized and capable, emotionally grounded and present, and mentally creative and focused, right? And I want to do things that help me move in that direction and stay there while I have my ambitious goals that I'm going after. And then ascend is the last one. We won't get into that. That's basically, how do you take these practices from one area of your life and apply them to the other? So once you've got things worked out in your personal life, how do they apply to your professional life, or vice versa? But I hope that, at least in this conversation, Vanessa, listeners kind of just, I don't know, have some curiosity and some aha.
Yep. No, that's been absolutely wonderful to hear. and also that these are the steps and processes that we go through, and it's a small steps, the daily small steps. We're building this muscle. We've been disconnected with our bodies and with our gut feelings and everything else like that for decades.
Mhm. Yes.
And so now the muscle has atrophied,
Yes.
and we need to build it up, but tenderly
Yeah.
and with care, and not to overdo it, because if we do, then we're damaging ourselves again. And people have done where they have a lot of expectation, and then they burn out again.
Mhm.
So
Right.
these are small steps, and they're quiet steps too, is what Crystal was saying. They're just really quiet steps. It's really reconnecting, feeling what does yes feel like to me, what does no feel like to me. And when you were going through that exercise, it's like yes was a kind of a light feeling, and then a no was like a more that has come from sort of my gut area, or we call the solar plexus area sometimes, and that kind of going and crunch. No, to get to that stage took me about 2 or 3 years. Whereas before I'd be like, was that a yes or a no? And and of course most of the time you would say yes because it's easier.
Right.
Yeah, and so I really that's some beautiful sharing of your tools and steps to move forward with that. And just moving along with that, which is really in the next which is very exciting, is you have a bonus that you're sharing with people at the moment, and I'll show that's here. It's all in the website, so just to show everyone what the bonus is. So if you could just describe that to us, that would be really great. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're really at the beginning journey and you recognize that you're in burnout, and some of the physical and emotional and mental difficulties that Vanessa and I have described, then you would benefit from just a simple starting place, something that you can do right now that doesn't take a whole lot of this introspection. What we've been talking about, these strategies are really, embodiment is takes curiosity and a little bit of energy. And I recognize that not everyone is there yet. And so the link that was shared for the free guide that I have for you is called the Stress and Overwhelm Relief Game Plan. And it's really when you're feeling like stress is at its peak and you're just overwhelmed. You can't get to the next thing you need to do to take care of yourself because you're too overwhelmed. Then this is what you need to do. And it's 6 simple things that you can do right away. You'll opt in, and it takes you to a web page where you can read through them, come back to it as much as you need to. And then I think 2 days later, you get a video training that's less than 10 minutes. And I'm just coaching you on energy pacing. And that goes back again to the anchor stage, your inner resources. How are you balancing your physiology, helping your energy, your focus, and feeling more grounded in the most basic ways. So for everybody here, it does not have to be hard.
No, definitely. So hook into the game plan. It's all so if you didn't get that one, it's all on the website where our summit is, so that and with the recording link of this as well. And so what you can do is have both there, and just click on it and download the game plan. And that's really, I've actually I think I've subscribed to it, and I've really enjoyed it. So definitely do the bonus. And also, this is how to contact you, Crystal, as well, through Instagram and LinkedIn as your socials.
Yes. And I would just like to say that the book is Revive, the Working Woman's Unexpected Guide to Recovering from Burnout. And it is going to be out later this year. If you want updates on that, it is crystalfrazee.com/book-updates. And I'm very excited to put that out to the world and really give you the tangible how-to steps to really navigate through the whole experience of burnout, through recovery, and hopefully into a state of resilience.
Okay, wow, that's fantastic. And I'm just going to put that up there, your book again. Sorry, just there.
I would love to know questions, thoughts, feedback about what we've been talking about. And, I would love to connect with any of the viewers. So don't hesitate to reach out. I would say getting on my email list and hitting reply is the best way to communicate with me. I'm not as consistent with the social media messengers, but, potentially Instagram or LinkedIn would be the best places if you want to message me there.
So besides your book that you're bringing out and writing at the moment, what's there, and your beautiful freebie, what sort of workshops and everything that's coming up for you at the moment with helping women in the Somatic Attunement Method?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking. I have a new offer. It's free. That is behind the scenes getting put together with a new website. And that is how to run your day without it running you. And I feel like we can all use that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And then, the way I work with clients is through a 2-day VIP. It's 2 half days called Revive. And that's really mapping out their burnout recovery. And then Spacious is a longer term burnout recovery plan. And then I work with women leaders who are kind of on the other side of burnout and really looking into what's next for them. And that is, accelerating them in their career. They've hit a plateau. We're working on some of these internal barriers, really applying the Somatic Attunement Method to help them with executive presence and going after that vision. And that's called Accelerate. And if you're on my email list, you can have access to all the details for those things.
Okay, wonderful. And finally, I always ask this of our speakers when I remember, because and I just went, geez, I didn't ask Nilu that. That was silly. But anyway, I'm going to ask you this. That's okay. Now, you see your 8-year-old self standing in front of you right now, and she's having a moment. Could be sadness, could be joy, could be anything. What would you whisper in her ear?
That's a beautiful question. I love that. Let's see. So many things come up because I'm doing a lot of inner child healing and repair right now. But I think I would just want to walk over to her, and if she would let me, I would just want to give her a hug, and I would want to hold her and say, everything you feel is valid. You're worthy for everything that you desire. And just let her know that she's seen and whole, completely whole, exactly how she is. And I would want to give her the gift somehow of courage to continue to be more of who she is.
Okay. Wow. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Crystal. That's really touched my heart. And your sharing today of, coming back to our bodies and coming back to ourselves, really coming into reconnection with ourselves. Thank you so much. If anyone here has feels that this is going to help someone, please share this video with them. For me and for Crystal and from all the people at the Summit of the Energized Power Professional Women, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa.